Good morning, each one of you. On behalf of Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce, we welcome you all for this exclusive session on enterprise digital transformation, which will provide an overview for data sciences enablement towards LIMA EIH. The session is organized under the aegis of Industry 4.0 Expert Committee chaired by Mr. A.N. Chandramouli, who is also our former president. On behalf of BCIC, we express our sincere thanks to Mr. Mohan Krishna, who is the Senior Data Architect, and Mr. Niranjan Vasireddy, Director Customer Success of Align Consulting, for accepting our invitation to address the members of the Chamber. The session is moderated and Mr. Chandramouli will be giving an overview and setting the theme of the context for the session. I now request Mr. Chandramouli to take it over from here. And we also will be taking the question and answers from the participants post the presentation of the speakers, and request all the participants to post their questions in the chat box. Thanking you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Rupa. Am I audible? Rupa, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Clear, sir.
Okay. Okay. Good morning to everyone. I think more and more people are joining. I welcome all, and I also take the pleasure and opportunity to welcome our speakers. Both of them are right now in America in a very late time zone, almost like our sleeping time. So we must thank them for being available today to share their knowledge and expertise on the area of data sciences and how they support digital transformation for the entire company. Enterprise digital transformation means end-to-end digital transformation. And I'll make a few remarks. And Align Consulting is established in America as well as in Hyderabad. And they have a brand called LIMA, about which the speakers will explain. And they have sponsored this program. We are grateful to them for that. And it is organized by the committee that we have for Industry 4.0. And their main focus is not only the technology of the data science, but also applications such as supply chain 4.0, etc. And let me give some broad idea about the overview of today's session. Rupa, I hope my audio is okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'll make a few remarks on data science. The data science is a very vast ocean in which I group them into basic data analytics related data science and advanced data analytics related data science. And the basic data analytics and advanced data analytics can be grouped into 4 boxes. The descriptive data analytics, the diagnostic data analytics are in general classified under basic data analytics. I'll explain in few moments what they are. And advanced data analytics, we have, I talked about the basic data analytics, yeah. And the advanced data analytics, you have the predictive data analytics and the prescriptive data analytics, yeah. And what are these 4 boxes? Very, very briefly, I think I have 2 cursors. Let me remove one of them. Oh, anyway, so the first and foremost is what is going on in our shop floors, what is going on in our supply chain, what is going on in our quality management system, what is going on in our asset utilization, and what is the performance of the entire organization, what are the KPIs, what are we measuring as performance of the organization. And these all coming under the concept called descriptive data analytics. And here I call them the concept of transparency. That means so far the data is only hidden. There are a lot of hidden data, and how do we bring it out and make it very visible? There is slight discrimination I am making between transparency and visibility. I'll come to that point. The transparency is being the instantaneous visibility of the information going on in our shop floors, in our manufacturing system, in our design office, in our shop, in our supply chains, in the materials management, in manufacturing, in maintenance, in after sales service, in our sales process, and our customer oriented processes. All these things, what is going on today? What? The question, what, is answered by descriptive data analytics. And our speakers will elaborate their solution on this. The more important thing which comes in the era of Industry 4.0 are diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive data analytics. Even in our erstwhile Industry 3.0, we had descriptive data analytics. The difference now being, instead of getting the information after 1 day or 1 month or 1 week, now we have the possibility of getting the information within few seconds. So the latency or the time spent on getting the information has been shortened to a very small 10 microseconds, right, or 10 milliseconds as they call it, because of the various technologies brought by Internet of Things and the cloud-based processing. Cloud is nothing but internet. And then comes with the new technologies, we can find out why something is going wrong. What is the reason for the deviation from the standards? What is happening to our quality tolerance levels? What is the actual quality vis-a-vis the planned quality? What is the actual delivery vis-a-vis the planned delivery? And why it is different from the planned targets? And what is the reason? What are the root cause to be analyzed? And Internet of Things helps us to analyze the root cause. So that I call it as a diagnostic data analytics. I hope, Rupa, I am audible.
Yes,
because
sir.
rainy season,
Yes, sir.
Bangalore,
Yes.
some internet stability is there. So I call it under the category of the principle of IoT called traceability. If you have to find out the reasons with respect to man, machine, material, methods, and even systems, what are the causal factors which results in what is happening in the descriptive data analytics, and that is called under the bandwagon of traceability. I call them as diagnostic data analytics. You go to the doctor, you say, I have a fever. Then the doctor finds out, asks you the question, why do you have a fever? Then he gives you medicine. But in the corona era, it is not enough to take medicine. You need to take vaccination. So then we are moving into the predictive data analytics. What can happen if you don't apply the vaccination? What can happen in the future? When you talk about the future, then visibility of what is happening at 8:30, we should know what can happen at 9:30 in the morning. On Monday, we should know what can happen on Tuesday. On week 49, we should know what can happen in week 50. That means if something goes wrong in November, we find out what is going wrong, why it is going wrong. We should be able to predict what can go wrong in December or next week or next hour. That I bring under the banner of visibility. That means we will be able to find out whether material supplies will happen or not happen. All about future, and future can be defined as next minute, next hour, next half a day, next week, next month, and in some cases next year also. In the healthcare industry, you have to predict what is going to happen in the next year also, right? For example, COVID and Corona. So the advanced data analytics, and LIMA is very good in not only the basic data analytics, but more in the advanced data analytics. Even I'm very eagerly waiting for them to describe what it is. And the fourth aspect, ladies and gentlemen, is very, very important. Having known what is going on, having known why it is going on, and having known what can go wrong in the future, then you must take action. The action should not be involuntary action. The action should be voluntary action. That means the system should act upon itself. The system should act upon itself through the concept of adaptability, adaptable manufacturing processes. And we bring the concept of prescriptive data analytics. So moving on from these four aspects of basic and advanced data analytics, I'm very happy to tell you that today you are going to understand from LIMA and A-Line Consulting how to do digital transformation of the entire enterprise through big data analytics, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, machine learning technologies. The technologies are only important to the extent they serve the purpose of digital transformation. The state of the art technologies ushering companies staying competitive. Even India is no exception to that. We have to align with the global world. We are part of the supply chain of the entire world. So if the supply chain doesn't respond to the OEMs in Europe and America and other parts of the world, then India will fail as a nation. And LIMA is playing a significant role and treating data as an asset. As they say, data is oil. And LIMA rapid prototype and deployment model advantage helps realize business value quickly and with certainty. That means there is no uncertainty in the value generated through LIMA solution. Value means benefit to the organization. That is improvement of quality, improvement of delivery, improvement of productivity, improvement of energy efficiency, improvement of material availability, improvement of safety, improvement of asset utilization, and so on and so forth. And finally, LIMA's data science platform helps in managing, storing, retrieving the entire company's business and transaction data. It is not just a ERP system, it is IoT enabled system. That means the Internet of Things, like a Ola car and the Swiggy and Zomato. Visualization mechanisms. You should not see only data as a raw data. You should be able to see them in a very palatable graphical and other formats, including market demand, and can be enabled through the LIMA system. And I'm very happy to welcome Mr. Mohan Krishna. I think he's going to be our first speaker. He is a senior data architect of LIMA platform, A-Line Consulting. Mohan has 24 years experience in delivering business applications and analytics in various critical business operations and supply chain, HR, finance, and procurement. He is right now sitting in America. He is going to speak to us. He is passionate about latest technologies and how these technologies enable business transformation for companies large and small. It is not only for the large enterprises like Tata and Toyota, but the MSMEs also get benefited. Of course, the discussion always happens, can MSMEs afford the solutions? That question will come always in the Q&A session. We will talk about that. And in the key architect of the big data solution, LIMA is powered by machine learning and artificial algorithms and widely used to enable transformation at some of the world's leading companies, which they will illustrate. And he holds a bachelor degree from IIT Madras and masters in operation research from Georgia Tech. He is based in San Francisco Bay Area, California, USA. And our next speaker, second speaker, Niranjan Vasi Reddy, is a customer success A-Line Consulting. So that means one speaker, namely Mr. Mohan Krishna, is a technology leader, and our Niranjan is our application customer oriented leader. As a director of customer success with 22 years of experience of IT solutioning experience, he has assisted business leaders in making IT modernization a reality. Goals is very important, KPI, KRA of the operations. More than the IT goals, we are talking about the business goals of the company. That is why customer success, right? If customer doesn't succeed, there is no point in succeeding in technology. His work experience include working in America as a top-notch solution or consultant Oracle and make it happen engineer. That means he's an implementation person. Make it happen means implementation. A .com startup he has handled earlier, and a creative entrepreneur who created first hands-on children's museum. That's very interesting. I hope he can explain that during his conversation. At the end, ladies and gentlemen, there is a blank here. As and when you are having queries, doubts, and other requirements, even business requirements, you can put it on the text box, which will happen at 12:15 onwards. We will have the Q&A session. On that note, I would like to now hand over and close my conversation. And I'm trying to see where I have to unshare now. Oh, it's already unshared. Let me come to the video. And With that remark, I would like to hand over to our first speaker. I think Mr. Mohan Krishna is going to Krishna Mohan is going to start with the technology of LIMA brand, which is a brand of A-Line Consulting. Thank you, Mr. Murali Krishna, the CEO, director of this company. Mr. Murali Krishna has an office in Bangalore, also office in America. He is an observer today, but he will join at the Q&A session. Thank you, Mr. Murali Krishna, for supporting this program on behalf of BCIC. Over to Mr. Krishna Mohan. Now it's around 10:50. Over to you, sir. Thank you very much. Mr. Krishna Mohan, your audio is off.
Good. Sorry. Thanks, Chandramouli, Mr. Chandramouli, for that expectation, for that kind introduction. It was awesome, and I hope I could meet the expectations that you have set up. And thanks everyone for your time for today's conference in allocating to listening to us, and in the great forum organized by the sweat and blood of Mr. Chandramouli and co. It's really very helpful on all ends to come together to see how the world is moving forward. So with that, I will quickly jump on to the technical aspects of our LIMA platform. Basically, what is LIMA, right? So the overall presentation is structured as introduction, overview, and certain use cases, and what are the deployment benefits, and any further discussion as Mr. Chandramouli laid out. I'll cover the overview part, introduction overview part, and then Niranjan will cover the use cases and benefits part, and then Q&A will all come together, right? With that, so like we as a company, we started our operations in Europe, north of Europe, a land of thousand lakes, Finland, and some of the ex-McKinsey consultants, during the late 90s saw that the world is becoming a global village, go global, act local, and some of those mantras were all pretty popular at that time. So the transformation was real and affecting every business with all the mergers and acquisitions globally, with borders opening up. And a lot of companies needed help. So our company was born in that heat of the moment to help large organizations to navigate them successfully through the transformation journey. And over the course of years, we've delivered successfully a lot of transformation programs in supply chain, covering core areas, including procurement, logistics, core supply chain like manufacturing, heavy manufacturing, etc., for various industries such as retail, process, wood, consumer goods, oil and gas, etc. Leveraging various applications as well, like software is always part of any of these transformation journeys, at least past 20, 25 years. And as part of that, one thing that constantly, within the company we realized was that the lot of applications are not scalable, elastic, and they don't cater to some of the key areas that Mr. Chandramouli was also highlighting earlier. That is, am I getting insights? Is the information being passed on to the right person at the right time? Is there any learning that's happening on an enterprise-wide scale, right? And how can we operationalize this learning into operational transformation? So this core element was missing, and then to make that happen, it's not a small isolated problem when you look at large organizations. So it's a distributed problem that needs a comprehensive solution. And the technologies at the moment, both hardware and software, were not sufficient at that time. And over the course of the years, the technologies matured, and then that's when we realized, hey, based on our learnings and where the technological roadmap is we can have a very good solution that can really help companies leverage these technologies and adopt transformation, business transformation at a much quicker and faster phase, right? So that's when Lima was born. We launched Lima around 2010, and then we've been investing heavily, and like a lot of large organizations such as Intel, Nokia, Logitech, Gap, etc. Like we're discussing with some of them, we're already in a mature implementation, mature support in lots of these big companies, and it's been proven pretty popular as well for the underlying benefits. Our company has global presence. We are distributed across Europe, US, and India. Maybe not that much of a exciting slide, but so let's look at what Lima is. So Lima is basically a platform on which you can like it has the core elements of the latest technologies arranged in such a way that you can easily pick up the pieces and provide a business solution much quicker and faster, right? So it has all the connectors on the left hand side, like it has all the connectors to connect to some of the enterprise data definition systems such as Calibra, or IoT like Kafka, or enterprise ERP such as HANA, Teradata, SQL, or Excel's PDF, Outlook, or any flat files. So it can take up the data. And then there are a lot of reusable components within Lima, the blue box in the center, that you can arrange in a structured way to be able to create an application to better serve your business needs, whatever those business needs are. And that's where this rapid prototype type of platform came into the picture. Why Lima, right? Like, hey, I can go to like AWS, I can go to Azure, I can do all of that myself. Yes, you can do all that yourself. The key difference between the all the other Azure, Google, or AWS versus Lima is that there you have to do a lot of things manually from step 1 to step 10, or step 100, to be like from data definition to the ultimate delivering the ultimate app to market, like to your end business. Whereas what Lima would do is it would accelerate the journey for you, because it has all the inbuilt connectors and the components, that the reusable components that you can stitch together. um, you may think, or like a lot of people do have these questions in their heads, but I have like a lot of these transformation elements and data and machine learning elements, etc., within these cloud technologies. So how is Lima different from them? So what Lima would do is, like, Lima has these inbuilt, as I said, like the depth at which you could do a data intelligence, or the breadth with which you could identify and solve a problem. Those are all much beyond the traditional, or the what you would find for generic use in these cloud platforms, right? So and then it provides solid analytical core bed on which you can do a lot of analytics, and very specific to your company or use case. That's why we are very successful at large companies. So all of our experience working for these large organizations is poured into this Lima in terms of reusable components. And it has various elements, right? From like a data transformation, data gathering, data analytics, data intelligence, to including the smart app building type of architecture, so that you don't have to shop around from various places, to provide application or solutions to your business problems. And you can also like stitch very well pretty instantly with Power BI, or create alerts, or real-time publish or synchronize with your target applications rather instantly. And coming to Lima, like the industry 4.0, and the next gen supply chain. We are working with some of the big companies such as PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Capgemini, to really like go to some of these process heavy industries or like cost intensive industries to see how we can even create a digital twin using our platform, because we have everything integrated. We can connect to the sensors. For example, one of the use cases that we're doing at was some of these intensive companies, manufacturing intensive companies, is to at every step of the manufacturing process they have the output, be it chemical output from the chemical processing or material output from the material yields, or and then we assess the composition, or the composition assessed information is passed on to LIMA. LIMA then would assess what is the percentage of yield over a period of time, what is the quality of the supplier who supplied that a key component or key material into your manufacturing process, and how has your manufacturing process has been over a period of time, and even alert risks, and then deliver it to some of the key decision makers, be it procurement, operations, manufacturing, plant, so that they act in a much more prescriptive, predictive way, having the transparency, including historically, right? And doing some of those, like you will have to, if you have to go to drawing board, then you need to start from scratch. Whereas with LIMA, you're already 50 steps ahead. All you have to do is just formulate the problem, and LIMA would accelerate and would be the win for you, win behind your backs, to enable that success. So, what is the underlying, core elements that make up this architecture? So, especially in an enterprise setting, right? Like you have users, you have data, you have scalability, where like the data volumes can be large and data integrity can be wide, and the nature of data itself can be varied, right? Like from depending on the source system, and the data itself could be splintered across multiple applications, etc. So LIMA is essentially developed on an open stack architecture based on this, um, like microservices architecture on Kubernetes. So which essentially means that it is easily scalable and elastic, and all these components, all these functions that you see here are all individual microservice enabled functions that can be leveraged based on your end use, right? So you have tighter user access control. You can really enable who gets access to what set of data, when and how, for how long, including encryption, hiding, editing, deleting, etc., at a very fine granular level. It also provides you with when you, for example, in one of the clients, we're running LIMA across 64 nodes. So if you're running LIMA across 64 nodes to 120 nodes, on some 256 cores and 250 or 300 or 500 gigabyte RAM. So you have the hardware side and performance side of the engineers as well, who have to do the maintenance. So the platform provides a very good way of visualizing, assessing, and managing that, when especially your implementation grows very large in size. So it has integrated environment management module as well. And any data, be it internal or external, one of the advantages of LIMA is it's a virtualized platform. Essentially, what that means is in most of the data lakes that you see, you'll have to manually bring the data into a particular place, could be AWS or whatever, and then you need to do XYZ, the further steps to ultimately serve your business based on their need. Whereas with LIMA, you can either keep the data where it is and then take the compute there, or you can do the compute. The compute work is distributed, either external or internal, either on the platform. So it provides that flexible architecture. So what does it mean, right? Like it means that data is democratized, right? It can stay where it is. So, but then you just define the data definition within LIMA. LIMA then can enforce all the constraints across data that is spread across or sitting anywhere. So essentially, you get end-to-end visibility instantly. And then it also gives you, like, based on the business rules, like let's say your procurement data is in one location, whereas your supplier data is another location, supplier master, and somehow you want to just relate these two. then you can just virtually like define virtually like those data definitions within Lima and then create business rules. Then Lima will go and do the work for you to be able to say, hey, these are the anomalies based on the rules that you have defined. And if you also like write any algorithms or models, then it can also like sniff through the data and then including the historical over a period of time, and then provide you provide you the insights without actually bringing in the data. So how does it help? It basically helps because in large organizations, it's very hard to replicate. I mean, you're talking about 2,000 applications, right? So 1,000 applications. So you can't just like knock on every person's door and then like get all the data into one platform and then start doing something, right? So that's an immense problem to solve. And whereas what Lima provides you is that let it be where it is, because you cannot move the elephant in one day. Whereas the business itself could be changing, right? And it's constantly changing. So the nature of the problem and the solutions that you need to provide are also changing constantly. So when the market is changing so rapidly, technology should be able to move faster to be able to provide that solution, and that's what Lima enables. So it provides, it actually like focuses on that key element of like sniffing through the data and then getting the insights and enable you to configure the solutions using the latest technologies and provide that solution to the business rather faster, right? So schema would enforce on a virtualized, democratized, data environment. You can integrate. It also has an option to integrate. Like if you want to bring and do something additionally, you can also do that. It has a traditional transformation element as well built in, along with some of the latest AI ML technologies that can interlink the data, be it within Lima or outside Lima across various databases, looking into wherever the data is sitting. You can enforce master data management in the same format, integrated data visualization. We also have IoT, Internet of Things, to enable supply chain 4.0 and digital twin type of concepts. And it's based on this embedded machine learning, artificial intelligence platform or principles, where we have some a feature called PyLima. So using which you can really you can either adopt some inbuilt algorithms, could be random forest or whatever that that Lima provides as part of standard features that are more popular in the market to suit your business needs, or you can develop your own modules. And the key advantage is it's all integrated, right? So like from day one, so you don't have to have that mindset of I need XYZ data engineers to do this job, XYZ data scientists to do this job, and ABC hardware people to do that job. So all that is thrown out of the window. You start from your business problem, and then you then identify your data elements, and then how do you get from data to addressing your problem. And Lima would just get you be there in a matter of weeks or days, right? So that's the overall advantage of Lima. We are a technology partner on the software side with SAP, Oracle, Salesforce, and many others. On the hardware side, with the with Azure, AWS, and we're also Docker certified, and Google as well. We recently started an exercise with Google, so Google, we're also certified Google partner, and it's, as I was explaining earlier, this is based on big data elastic server architecture. So what it means is that uh, there are four components to this platform. There is an UI, which the end users would view and use. There's an in-memory data compute to be able to make the data quickly accessible to the users. There's big data Hadoop type of technology using Spark, where you need to have compute framework as well. And there's a persistence element, be it internal or external. And each of these services, they are developed in a microservices architecture. So what it means is that uh, they can run on just regular nodes that you can provision off of these cloud service providers. And depending on your use case, you can run the entire application on one single node, or as I was mentioning, 70 nodes or 100 nodes, like some of our clients are. So you can go from like all the way from one node to 100 or 120 nodes, and leverage all the features. Of course, on a one node style, you can the scope of the problem you're solving could be probably limited. Whereas if it's 100 nodes, then the scope of the problem you're solving and the number of problems you're solving could be like a lot bigger, right? So, but then the software just scales itself out, just replicates itself, depending upon where the load is, and then the platform admins can easily view that, and they get alerts, and um, they can manage the entire platform pretty quickly. So one of the key benefits, like for example, some of our clients are experimenting with is like, they have the data distributed, like spread across multiple places, multiple databases, and in different formats. Could be DB2, Oracle versions, as well as SAP. Then like again, some of the basic elements that even Mr. Chandramouli highlighted, like a transparency, visibility, like simple. It appears very simple, but to get there in an organization, it's a bit of a challenge, right? So if you just look at just one function like procurement or manufacturing, how can I interlink some of this data that is sitting all across the world, especially for a company of like size Intel or Google or whatever, and then how can I enable some sort of analytic, or even streamline procurement for some of my key or core components, and what is the quality of those interlinked data? So once you uh, assign those connections to LIMA based on all these data elements wherever they're spread. So LIMA can actively like work in the background based on some of the latest technologies, and then can create a knowledge graph for you on how the data is interlinked. And based on the rules that you set, it can also tell you like, what is the percentage of the data quality that you're seeing in one system versus the other, and what is the commonality, and based on this, like, what is your business impact? Are you dealing with like a lot of suppliers for the same component or a part, resulting in like less efficient purchasing contracts, so which in turn you can save costs, right? So you can define such a problem pretty flexibly in LIMA, and then LIMA can intelligently like run in the background and then provide all the linkages for you, even though some of those linkages, such as foreign key relationship, data types, that you wouldn't have defined it, right? Like, because data is fundamentally sitting across different databases that are basically different in different regions or geographies. So LIMA can do that data sniffing and data linkages and give you that knowledge graph based on which, like, you can take business actions. Um, and one of the other things that we classically see is that once you're, like, you connect data, and then you bring in the data, and then you start leveraging or utilizing data, be it in a structured data lake, or any of the coherent interconnected solutions, then one key concept that always comes back to haunt people is the lineage, right? Like, if I change something here, how would it affect some of the applications that I've delivered for my business to solve some specific problems? Most of the times, you don't care, or like people don't care. Like, yeah, somebody, like, someone else did it. You need to check through the documentation. Oh, there's a bug, and then, or after delivery, people realize some functionality is not working, and then, like, they go back and they retract or fix that issue, right? Whereas what LIMA does is, like, LIMA comprehensively provides a good lineage of all of the activities that you're doing and how you're leveraging from end to end, from all the way from source to target, including serving various business users, various types of data, amount of data at a specific role, etc. Right? At the table column level. So how does it help? It helps in, like, if you want to make a change tomorrow, add, modify, delete, then it can show you a quick impact, a real-time impact of how it's going to affect the existing apps or existing solutions that you're that you're serving to your varied business partners. So with that, that improves your quality. You're always in command of the solutions that you're building. That increases your visibility as well. And you can also have insight into what are your heavy hitters, right? Like versus, what is your most critical data systems versus some non-critical data systems. The problem may not be huge if you have just 10 data sources, but imagine if you are like connecting Lima to like 20 sources, 30 sources, and then trying to serve various business users and varied problems. Then these things will really help you, to get hold of the complexity that gets evolved at each step of the way in your journey. With that, I will pass it on to Niranjan, who will walk through some of the real world use cases that we're serving at various clients. Niranjan, please.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. Chandramouli.
So you're on mute.
Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes,
Yeah,
Yes,
now
sir.
we can.
Niranjan,
Yeah, now we can
sir,
hear you.
we can hear you, but as sir suggested, if you can come on the video, it will be nice because we're going to have the cloud recording on this.
Yeah, my video is on, isn't it not?
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
is it on? Okay, okay, sorry.
He's visible, sir.
Oh, is it? Okay, okay. To me, it is. Okay.
All right.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Chandramouli Garu, and thank you for that. Good morning, everyone. And my name is Niranjan Vasireddy, and sort of taking you on a different journey here. So let me ask you one simple question. If we roll back time, can any one of you remember? I know it's a tough question. Sorry?
So your voice is quite feeble, sir. Can you speak a little bit louder?
Is this better?
A little more, sir.
Else to do? I mean, I'm speaking as loudly as I can. Talk.
Oh, and now it's okay, sir.
Okay,
Please
sorry.
continue.
Yeah, sorry for that. So if we can roll back time a little bit, I just wanted to ask people if they can vaguely remember where they were on September 23rd, 2014. And I don't know about all you guys, but there was one thing which was very, very special that happened on that particular day, which was Mission Mangalyaan. And this was a very proud moment for every Indian, just kind of seeing how ISRO managed to land in the very first go a satellite that was going to go into Mars, a very unknown territory for all of us. Now, and at the same time, when we start looking at it, there were a lot of things that needed to be achieved. So if you see, there was as much as the mission was to study the Martian surface and the mineral composition, there were different sensors that were put into these little device, be it thermal infrared imaging spectrometer or the methane sensor or the Mars color camera. Now, at the same time, there was a very limited time to help achieve this, and the cost was very, very unbelievable to the Western world, which was $70 million. Now, if we look at it again, what were the mission objectives? It was very interesting when I started to really look at this. The mission objectives were, orbit maneuvers, development force models and algorithms, navigation in all phases, meet power and communication, thermal payload. At the same time, being able to incorporate autonomous features to handle contingency situation. What is interesting is that all of this ties into a supply chain 4.0. We're looking at, some part of autonomous execution, prescriptive analytics, being able to have visibility into logistics and integrated planning. As they're doing all these things, the communications has to be well done. The system or the satellite needs to be responsive. There needs to be a collaboration effort, and the system needs to be needs to also have flexibility. On the parallel, if we go into industrial revolution and sort of look at what happened over a period of time with the industry as such, and why is it called the Industry 4.0? The very first industrial revolution, which was sort of like in 1784, was all about using water and steam to drive mechanical production. Now, the second industrial revolution, which began at around 1900s, was about electricity. How do you use electricity? How do you start to automate, various parts of the factory, if you will? And it started out with the Cincinnati slaughterhouse, and then we've seen the Ford Motor Company building the very first, conveyor model for building automobiles. Then came the third industrial revolution, which was more about how do you use the chips or logic controllers, programmable logic controllers to help achieve more productivity or faster productivity. And currently we are in the fourth industrial revolution, which is based on use of cyber and physical systems. So you got all these cell phones, IoT devices, and various other things, including AI, ML, all these different words that people throw out. At the same time, if you really look at it, the complexity has been increased with every version of industrial revolution. And currently, we are in the highest or the most complex industrial revolution so far. I'm sure there'll be another one, which is going to be even more complex than that. So what does the factory of the future look like? I mean, I was just curious, and CB Insights actually puts out a very nice infographic here. I mean, we're talking about some of this, which we already see in warehouses like Amazon, wherein there's a lot of interaction between these various devices that are using all these IoT or various things to actually propel the industry together. And then we can't help but ask and say, in such an industry, how do you start to plan? How do you source? How do you, make the things, and how do you deliver? At the same time, how do we, what's our ROI, right? How do we increase our return? How do we save dollars? At the same time, what do we use with all our information that comes in? And when I go back to Mission Mangalyaan and the challenge, if you see, this little satellite had to do so many different things. Obviously, some are connected. Some of the features are connected to each other. Some are semi-connected. Some are very, independent, if you will. And ultimately, how do you make this all happen, right? I mean, it's a very when we look at the challenge as such, it seems very something like a challenge that we would have in our day-to-day life, or would we? Now, when we go back, right, today's company's Mangalyaan challenge or the data challenge, you have some which is structured, you have some which are semi-structured, and you have various unstructured data as well. Then how do you take all these data and how do you empower or how do you enable the business? How can we make it easily adoptable? How do you combine all these things and drive the mission forward, if you will? So in today's company's Mangalyaan challenge, not only how can we put everything together into one little device, at the same time, how can it be all in one? Can it be cost effective? Can it be the next generation or enable us to get to the next generation? How do we do it? Now that's where LIMA comes in. Now LIMA is, in another way, your mission Mangalyaan enabler. And I really like this because Mars to me represents, for every company there is a Mars. There's an area that is very much unexplored. And when you're going to Mars, you don't need to build an entire city. You just need a little device that'll help you get there to really uncover all the various things that are just hidden in plain sight. Or if you see what LIMA can do, it's this one little device that'll help you in any project or mission. You can connect to various data sources. You can cleanse or clean the data. You can, calculate or map different things. You can collaborate with different people within the organization. And finally, after you've done all of this, you can control and automate the entire thing. And that is why, it's a very, complete all-in-one platform from start to finish. It's very cost effective because it's put all things in one. It's scalable, it's next generation, and it's very secure. So, and coming to, when we go back to Mission Mangalyaan, and when we are looking at how do we build it, right? How did ISRO build it? And there's a movie as well. And for those who've watched the movie, it's interesting. Of all the various things that happen when you're trying to go on a mission like this, there's a lot of rapid prototyping that is needed. And what could be something like a cardboard paper model, and then ultimately to a little bit more complex model, to a final concrete model. All of these need to be done. So if you look at the agile product lifecycle as such, you take in the requirements, you design, and then you do development and testing, and the iteration is done right between the design and development and testing. Now, one of the challenges with that is that all the requirements need to be understood pretty well. And at the same time, when the systems are a little bit, when you're talking about ERPs and all, it becomes a bit more complex, and bigger organizations like if a company has IT, then IT gets involved, and it becomes a long drawn engagement. Versus with LIMA, I like to use the Swiss Army knife. And for people who have seen the Swiss Army knife, right, it's this one small device that can do a lot of things. It's very, very powerful. And so if you see how we do it in LIMA is you take the requirements, you can quickly design something, build a prototype, iterate it right here. And that saves the time and it enables cost cutting or cost savings. At the same time, it enables us to be able to deliver the solution, a concrete solution, faster. So now I'd like to take you on various missions we have done for various companies. And if you see, there's different kind of missions or scenarios, if you will. Some are, the scenario one is you have multiple unstructured or semi-structured insights, and how by using LIMA, you can then drive automated or combined intelligent insights. Then you have another scenario where you have multiple structured insights, and then some semi-structured insights, and how we've used LIMA to sort of like combine them together to drive intelligent insights. So moving on, the first one that I would like to take you on is the GLO, or Global Logistics Organization's visibility mission. And here the challenge was, how do you get your eyes on the transport? There's a lot of stuff that's happening. And so you've got a lot of multiple unstructured, semi-structured insights. And how did we take this? Now, what do I mean by multiple unstructured or semi-structured insights? What is the problem or scenario that we're trying to solve here? So if you see the carriers, various carriers send their pre-alerts, and pre-alerts are usually scanned documents, and they're in either an image format or a TIFF format as a part of PDF, meaning they can't be searched or scanned. And so you've got different shipping companies sending all these emails to the logistic team. At the same time, the logistics team is not in one place. You've got them spread across various places. So what do they have to do? They have to open every email. They have to open not only the email, then they have to open every PDF. And usually they get 1 to 5 PDFs per every email. And then they have to visually look for their particular PO number. And then they have to match that PO number to their company's track list and update the database. And each regional center maintains their specific data. So how did we do this in LIMA? So where does LIMA come in? So what we were able to do, this is a very high level architecture, and the next slide will go into a slightly bit more detail as well. So if you see in LIMA, what we were able to do was we were able to connect to the Outlook, and whatever emails were being sent to the customer service organization or reps, that were also being sent to a generic email. Now, from that generic email, we were able to take the email and send it to something which is called an OCR or an optical character reader. What this does, this is not, this is again a third-party piece of software. What it does is it makes any PDF which is not searchable. And so we put it into the input folder, then it does its thing and puts it in an output folder. From there, we were able to configure LIMA to move that to a shared folder. Now, within the shared folder, we then scan, because now we can search for the PO numbers. We start looking for the various PO numbers. And based on the PO numbers, we put them into, or LIMA puts them into various different folders. Now, this is all being done automatically, by the way, right? Once it is done, then LIMA updates the table to kind of say, these are all the POs that are received, and the table is updated. There's a Excel sheet that the organization maintains, wherein they're tracking all the POs that they're supposed to receive that month or that week. Now we match it with that, and the report is being shown in the user dashboard. So they're able to see this. And which is pretty cool. So if you think about it, this was like, various different systems, and it brought everything together in one place. Now, once we had done that, now when we're trying to come and start to drive more intelligence, right? How do we get more transparency or the prescriptive data analytics? And this is where LIMA starts to have all its intelligence built in that helps. What we were able to do was we started then reading all the emails to see and build various from rules and to rules, meaning if the email is from FedEx, look for the subject ABC. That's where they're going to have the airway bill number. If the email is from DHL, look in the body, because that's where they're going to have their airway bill number. So we were able to start to put all these, and at the same time, as much as FedEx and DHL as I use, because it's global, now how FedEx Ireland sends it is different from how FedEx Malaysia sends it. And so being able to find patterns, so LIMA was able to help in identifying those patterns that how various customer centers within the logistics department were actually sending. And so that led to further discussions with all these shipping companies and having them change, or being able to become more efficient within the process. So if you see, not only that, now on the other end, what we were able to do is once we get a PO, we are then able to apply some rules to kind of say, okay, is the PO number validated? Meaning, did they put it, and is that PO already there? Now, how do you validate the PO? If there is a particular part number present, now, and that part number is mentioned in the PO, so then we know that's the exact shipment. So we are able to match that. Now, if the part number or description matches, we are then able to say, yes, there is a part number or a description match. If there is no match, then we send it back to the customer service rep within the company to say, hey, you need to check this paperwork, because we don't know what the shipment contains. So if you see all of this, right? So now this is how we were able to drive process improvement. We became, rather than from an organization which was very reactive, it started becoming a lot more proactive. And sorry. So if you see here, so this is an actual screen in LIMA itself. So this is where all the business rules and business logic is being done to kind of say, for this particular PO, and the PO line, LIMA validated it, and there was a part number match, or in this case, there's a description match, but no part number match. So it then starts to list down everything. So by doing so, what were we able to do? So if you see, that's how we were able to drive the SCM 4.0. The logistics team became, or changed from being reactive to proactive. And then within the system, LIMA was able to automatically match the paperwork to POs. Part of the problem that the companies had was also a huge turnaround of these people who are just checking all these POs, because it became like a contract workers. They were leaving the company. So by doing so, what this did was we were able to capture all the tribal knowledge that these people had, and we could retain it within the company. And this was a big win for the logistic department there. And then we were able to drive the shipping process modernization and improvement by being able to quickly identify and rectify supplier shipping bottlenecks. We were also able to connect it with, the airline thing, to be able to kind of say whether something is coming on time or not on time, or if there is a storm, then how at least they're notified that there is a storm. There would be a delay within the shipment. So people were able to, like Mr. Chandramouli was talking about, how do you take all this information to kind of say if there is going to be a delay, if there's not going to be delay, if it's going to be on time, what needs to happen? So now bringing all these different data together, we were able to help achieve that. And this is the big mission summary as such. I mean, this is how the Global Logistic Organization was able to get a lot more visibility. They were able to automate real-time data extraction from email, automatically scan each PDF for PO numbers. And then they were able to, the opportunity was for them to combine the supplier, carrier, and PO systems. And that is going on to the next level of the mission, which is, more in terms of the control tower kind of a thing, right? So from one, then you're looking and saying, okay, now that I'm able to achieve this one little thing, how do we then start to get more like a mission control or a control tower kind of facility build that will give the management the view of what is happening within logistics itself. And so if you see, again, the problem there was, as much as we were getting all the data, now each system maintained one part of it. And so there was no capability to access logistics exceptions in real time. So by real time, we mean, okay, there is a storm in the East Coast, or there's a storm in Europe. How do we then notify the people that there is a storm, the shipment is going to be delayed. If the shipment is going to be delayed, which shipment is going to be delayed, which is actually on track. So each of these, right? And at the same time, each system has their own limitations in terms of, like, one of the system had a limitation that they could only see it for the past 90 days. Now, why is that important, right? We might say, in the current environment, past 90 days doesn't make much of a difference, but it is being able to use the data from the past, more than the past 90 days, to drive predictive analytics. And so because they were not able to use that, they're not able to make any remediation actions instantly based on the previous past. And that's where the intelligence comes in. And so what we were able to do was we were able to take all of this and sort of like make it very, very, again, this is a piecemeal approach, right? So you're looking and saying the first thing that we started looking at was the exception management, the customer service request or logistics customer service request exception management. What do you do when there is an exception? What is an exception? Exception can be something like, hey, I need to expedite this particular shipment. All of a sudden, in the middle of it, the customer wants it more, or that particular thing is needed more, and you need to expedite it. So then somebody needs to identify that particular PO or the airway bill number, kind of call the airline and tell them to expedite it because that's needed more. And we were able to take that as one of the thing and start to automate that process. So we were able to expedite it. And then, being able to connect these various systems, be it from Excel, Power BI, or, all the various PDF logistics info, and then connect all of them together in a holistic control tower way. Now, at the same time, what was interesting was the company is a big company, but they did not have a control tower capable, feature available within the company. So within LIMA, they were able to very quickly build what a control tower should look like and how should it operate. And so they were able to, whatever was the ideation within their mind, they were able to bring it to life in a very, very short period of time. And that really helped them actually make a lot more decisions as to, and it made it very easy because they kept some of their existing tools. Now all of a sudden they didn't have to replace a lot of those things. They brought everything together. You could start to see how one can bring this to life. And then people started contributing with their own very ideas and kind of saying the next phase we should do this, with the next phase we should do this. So that way they were able to build the control tower sort of brick by brick, but not just brick by brick, which is not being useful, but I would say more like room by room, and then get all these things together wherein they were, as in level one, they were able to get some visibility into the logistics things that were happening around, and then they were able to set up alerts. And after alerts, they were able to, use LIMA for decision support. And then finally, they wanted to ultimately get to the SCM 4.0, which is sort of like the autonomous way of, automating the entire thing. But to get to that level 4, they needed all these little things to be done. And to get to all these little things, you need a tool that can really help, with, getting all these things done very fast. And that's where LIMA has a hands down advantage. It's a rapid prototyping tool that really helps them to bring their ideas to life. So, and since sometimes not everything has to be so complex. There could be small things that any company can start with. And it could be, so in this mission or in this challenge, what we had was supplier collaboration scorecard. How do you hold your suppliers accountable? Usually there's a contract. And within the contract, you've got multiple suppliers, and the supplier commits to do certain things at a certain amount of time, or if not, it's on the burden of the company to go back to the supplier and kind of tell them what the supplier is not doing properly. And it becomes very challenging when you have a lot of this being done through PDFs and Excel files. At the same time, let's say that, and in this case, what was happening was the supplier was certainly sending different things every week, week after week. But what is the difference between last week and this week? What got done? How do you start to rate them? How do you start to nudge the suppliers to be able to meet their commitments? So in this case, we were able to take all the documents that were there. At the same time, what were all the scorecards, if you will, that needed to be used to hold the supplier accountable. And we brought this all together to enable the company to be able to talk to their supplier. Again, you could set up alerts, and we had set up alerts to kind of alert the person who is talking to the supplier to kind of say, hey, by the way, we were supposed to receive this, or we were supposed to get these things done. We didn't get all of them done. Can you tell me more about it? And so it initiated the process, which was very, very broken or very manual, and we were able to automate it. Another mission was, this was again like completely data science, tailspends. What do you do when you have to integrate various data from various data sources, and being able to just use and kind of say, okay, where is my current spend being done? And what LIMA does is the beauty of it is it already has a lot of algorithms that are built in. So it was more about, this huge amount of data that was just out there, and then being able to connect it with LIMA to kind of see, okay, what are some of the patterns that we could see here. It's more like you can think about it as, if you had everybody's blood sample somewhere to kind of say, what are the patterns within um, the blood samples, or how does the blood sample relate to a probability of a heart attack, right? So in this case, this was more about tail spends. What were they spending? Where were they spending on? What are some of the patterns that they were seeing? Was there any? So they were very curious. This was more like their very first time. They just wanted to see, okay, if I have all these data, can you show me how to use all these AI and ML and drive some intelligence out of it? And so with the intelligence that we were able to drive in this particular use case, what we saw, where they started to use that information was, I think this was more in terms of procurement, where they were able to talk to some of their suppliers to see, based on their spending, how do they start to negotiate with some of their procurement suppliers. So another one, again, this is a common one for most companies, which is they have a couple of different systems doing different tasks within the company. And then you need something that gets limited amount of data from all these sources to make a lot of meaning out of it. And especially for the business, you would have a lot of business logic done. And most of the business logic resides in Excel files. And the problem then happens is that there are different versions of Excel files that come out. And in huge organizations, how do you then ensure that all this knowledge or all these formulae that were there in Excel, or the analysis that was being done, how do you capture that into a system? So this had to do with a lot of pulling the data, then cleansing the data, and then being able to understand what the business rules were for the business, and set up all those business rules where they can also edit it the way they want it, and being able to drive this sort of like one voice for them to help them in their decision making. And so, and then a couple of other, supplier improvement missions that were there. So how do you automate? I mean, it could be as small as a supplier project risk survey. So you can build a survey. So this was one of the things when we built a survey. So sometimes you can send it to 100 people. Sometimes you send it to only 30 people, but you gather what everybody is saying and you're able to assess the risk on a particular project. And there was another one of enabling an integrated data science studio as well. So in all, if you see, right, I mean, in every company, there's always a Mars. And we all need a Mangalyaan to really help us, bring all of it together, be it whether it's structured or semi-structured, unstructured. And in that sense, LIMA is that tool. It's all in one, it's cost effective, it's very easy to learn, it's scalable, it's next generation, and on top of that, it is very, very secure. So I didn't talk a lot about security, but in bigger companies, the security plays a huge thing, and we have 12 layers of security that goes all the way from row to roles. And so then the only thing I ask is, or I encourage all you guys to launch your SCIM 4.0 Mission Mangal. My name is Niranjan Vasireddy again. My email is right there. Please visit us at lima.ai. And I'm looking forward to helping anyone that wants to take on a mission to Mars. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Niranjan. Maybe after you unshare, I request Mr. Niranjan and Mohan Krishna and Murali Krishna to come on video. The punctuality of a webinar is superior to the punctuality of a seminar. That is my opening remark of the time management done by the two great speakers from America, and it is their sleeping time and our awakened time, and the dream of reaching the Mars through Mangalyaan 1 to 7. I am sure all of you would have realized those visions and dreams. It's a fantastic two-pronged presentation. On the one hand, the technology by Mr. Mohan Krishna. On the other hand, by the customer use cases with a focus on supply chain. Of course, it also applies to various other domains by Mr. Niranjan. And thank you so much for all the great speakers. If they have their internet bandwidth, I welcome them to open their video. And Rupa, if the videos are on, we can bring the gallery to now open up for the Q&A session. I see around 15-20 people on the Q&A session. And in the meanwhile, I request two things. One is the email ID and the website of LIMA and Airline can be put up on the text box for the benefit of the audience. And because this program is also going to the cloud, they can see in the text box. And also, those who did not register but directly join can write their email ID into the text box. And now I open up with one question from myself. Mr. Murali Krishna, what is the meaning of LIMA? Very layman question, but LIMA. Why did you call it as LIMA?
Okay, I was just on mute. Let me just tell how we coined the word LIMA. It's nothing but it's an interplay and change of the two letters AI, which means artificial intelligence, and ML, which means machine learning. So you just jigsaw them, you get LIMA.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So that was the thought process to come up with this a state-of-the-art platform
Right.
encompassing AI and ML at its core.
Fantastic, fantastic. And I could see that the LIMA is able to access to traditional legacy database systems as well as to the real-time IoT based database system. My follow-up question, until people are putting up their questions on their text box, but feel free to open up the audio and some of them can ask directly also. I have no problem on that because we are not having hundreds of people today, only 20 people now. So feel free to open the audio and ask the question. My follow-up question, sir, is can LIMA be used in, let us say, in the capital goods and machine tool sector? Number one. Number two, aerospace and aviation sector. Apart from, of course, the very famous automobile sector.
Absolutely. It is sector agnostic because every sector has its own systems that run the sectors and the data that is coherent within the organization. So based on the intelligence that needs to be unearthed to support the decision making, be more swift and change to suit the market conditions and help the business to stay competitive, LIMA is there to coherently bring about harnessing the interplay of big data, interplay of sensors. Data is coming from unstructured, as Niranjan pointed out. You have a plethora of data across the organization sitting in different forms, different factors from different devices, some from different systems. Some are also not even in systems. Some manual processes need to be really plugged in. And so LIMA can really come in and support, bring about everything in one platform and help you to transform the data, move the data, model the data, visualize the data, and help users play around with the data to come back not only to do tactical things, operational things, predictive analytics things from end to end the spectrum based on the rapid prototyping and other quick mechanics of seeing the art of the possible.
Great, sir. So hopefully in the next webinar, we can cover some use cases of the machine tool, capital goods industries, as well as the aerospace, aviation industries. And
I would strongly, since BCIC has a lot of companies representations going on, if there are any opportunities to tackle in the case of looking at a problem at hand or even empirical problem or even like a white paper comes out for an industry, if you guys want to examine and collate a benchmark of your standards or any data driven decisions happening in a particular sector, we would come in and you would see a quick showcasing of what is happening, what can happen, what will happen.
thank you, sir. That I'm also told that LIMA and A-Line have got a very attractive zero cost proof of concept, proof of value offering. And those of you would like to write to them directly and they will get in touch with you. We also have the registered links apart from those who are present today. And these special offerings to try out the LIMA will be sent by A-Line directly to the participants. And I now request the other participants, Dr. Narahari from RV College, sir. They have done a 3-day workshop or a 5-day workshop on supply chain 4.0. Dr. Narahari, if you are still on the line, you have any specific question to the LIMA team? Dr. Narahari?
Narahari says his mic is not working. He can put the question
No.
in the chat and we
No,
will
no,
be
no. I
able
think,
to.
Rupa, can you enable all the mics? Can you enable
Sir,
all the
I
mics?
have enabled, sir.
Narahari sir, it's enabled.
I have already enabled.
Okay. Narahari sir. They did a 5-day workshop on SEM 4.0. That's the reason I'm asking. RV College is doing a lot of work with the Industry Connect. And my good friend, Mr. K. Subramania, Dr. Subramania is the principal of the college. He is an expert in SEM 4.0. They would like to have a lot of industrial case studies, both for the students and for the industry. Mr. M.G. Hegde, who wished me good morning this morning, I think, Mr. M.G. Hegde, are you from Makino?
Yes, sir. I am from Makino.
Mr. Hegdeji. Okay, the great Japanese company Makino. You have any specific question on SEM 4.0
Not much,
or
sir.
the
Not
technology of LIMA?
much. Not much.
Okay, okay. Mr. Vasant Kini from Titanium Industries. Mr. Vasant Kini from Aerospace, Metal Cutting, Leadership. How are you, sir? I'm looking at some familiar names, so I'm asking them if there are any questions.
So I guess one of the ways to share some insights or questions that the forum or member participant might have is to get across to them offline after this webinar, and we'll send out a small form which would be self-explanatory for them to come back at leisure.
Yes, absolutely.
Because they can share it with their teams and they can come back with more specifics, and then we'll pointedly work with them to get them to understand how LIMA can come in and provide them some solutions or suggest where they can articulate solutions to those problems.
Exactly. I totally agree with you. And in that questionnaire, you can also include your possibility of the trial, the proof of concept trial. And then it will go to those 85 odd people who are registered. And those others, Rupa is trying to collect the contacts of those who didn't register but still joined. And the rest of the organization, we will see how to scale it up one by one. I can see it's a very impressive platform because it respects the legacy data. It respects the new database from the IoT, both legacy offline data, as I call it, and the IoT, the online data, real time. Both are, because we are in the transition phase. Another 10 years, there will be a lot of legacy data. I can foresee until a complete digital transformation happens. M. Janani from TVS Motor. Go ahead, madam. Please ask what you want to ask. We also have Dr. Devarajan, Vice President of TVS Motor present, but M. Janani is asking a question.
Okay. Sir, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead, please.
A very good afternoon to everyone, first of all. Thank you, team, for that.
There is a noise on your background. Madam, there is a noise in your background. If you can come to a isolated area, we can hear you better. Somebody is talking aloud behind you. If that is difficult, you can type it out, then I can read out for you. Go ahead.
No problem. Am I audible? Okay?
Audible, but hopefully behind there should be no noise. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Very good afternoon, everyone, first of all, and thanks, team, for such a great, insightful meeting today. It was really a very open, insightful session. And I just have one small doubt sort of thing. Is this LIMA being concerned only to
Cannot hear you.
Yeah.
Cannot hear you.
Is this LIMA application is concerned only to STM?
I have seen in many such slides like SEM 4.0. Is this LIMA applicable to all data stratifications or all data consolidations also?
Over to you, Mr. Murli.
Yeah. Actually, it is LIMA is not applicable to any SCM alone per se. You can take LIMA and provide decision support systems, artificial intelligence based modeling for addressing use cases pertaining to financial industry. It could be pertaining to healthcare, pharma. It doesn't have to be just SCM alone in the manufacturing side.
Okay, thank you, sir. And one more doubt is like, will it being able to consolidate all the data availability? Like irrespective of the platforms or forums, will it be able to also consolidate the data for giving a clear picture, you know?
Absolutely. I think Niranjan can take that question.
Yeah, I mean, so yes, we should be able to do that. It is entirely up to, when you're doing anything like that, one depends on the amount of data that you're talking about. When you say consolidation, what do you want to do with it? Ultimately, what we want to be able to do is to drive insights. So it's just not taking all this data and putting it in another place. As far as a system or a place wherein you can do it, yes, you can do it. But the beauty of LIMA is that you don't have to take all that data and put it in one place. You can leave it where it is and start connecting and using the data that you need. So think about it like this, right? So if I were to use another analogy, if you have different pieces of furniture lying around, and if you want to connect all the furniture, the old method is you need to actually build a bridge for all of them. With LIMA, what you're doing is it's almost like a fishing net. You just drop it on all the furniture and automatically you have a net and you can start connecting and using the data from all these systems. So you don't need to have a solid, bridge kind of methodology, but this is a very, very, cost effective and very efficient way of connecting all your data. Connecting the data is only one part, the very first part. Then after you connect, the next part is more, how do you start to isolate the data that you don't want? How do you start to apply the business rules to say, this is actually the data that I want? No different than what you would do in your Excel file, right? So once you get all the data, then you start, filtering out or weeding out the data that you don't want. And once you get that data, then you start applying your formulae or logic, right? To kind of say, if A is equal to B, then you want it to do something C. And so you're able to do that. Now from that, then you're going to use it to be it alerts or decision making, whatever it is. So this tool enables you to do all of that. Did I answer your question, ma'am?
Yeah, that's perfect. I got it.
I mean, in other words, it is domain agnostic. Supply chain was only a major illustration we took up today. It is sector agnostic and it is domain agnostic. And Dr.
Yeah.
Narahari is asking, thank you, madam.
Thank
Dr.
you, sir.
Narahari is asking, does your solution address interoperability? It's a big jargon I don't still understand till today. Across devices to help the organization. Maybe Krishna Mohan can take that question. Does your solution address interoperability issues across devices to help the organization?
Yes, I mean, yeah, the interfaces that we've developed definitely considers that people will be accessing information across various devices, such as tablets or mobile phones or desktops. Yeah, interoperability is a major factor in our architecture as well. So when you devise an app or when you provide a solution, then of course, depending on your end, the end gadget or end device, end user device, the certain functionalities have to be restricted and presented in a certain way and structure so that the information is much more consumable for the decision maker or information user. We consider those constraints as well, so that whatever that is presented is interoperable to the end gadget or end device that the user is interested in. Of course, most of the features are very optimized for the desktop, and then you can define the structure for a tablet as well as for mobile, which of course would have a restricted functionality, but delivers the key decisions or key points for that point in time for the user.
Thank you, Mr. Mohan. I have a follow-up question on that. Your answer related to the interoperability at the endpoint devices, where the data is finally analyzed, insights are available through desktop or tablet or mobile. What about the starting point devices, as where the sensors, RFID, and so many things are collecting data? I'm talking about the bottom sub structure, the bottom layer. I think you addressed the top layer where the human machine interface or the customer interface devices. What about the data collection point devices? How is the latency problem between one device and another device? Some are structured, some are unstructured, and so on and so forth. How do you address that in the case of the interoperability issue?
It's a great question, and that's the fundamental premise of the core architecture of LIMA, that the information sources would be disparate, and then the data itself would come in varied formats, structured, unstructured, semi-structured, as well as in a certain IoT formats as well, like JSONs or XMLs or whatever. And LIMA provides a flexible. I mean, wanted to rehash one of the key points that you mentioned to the broader audience as well. That it works both on the legacy as well as the latest technologies. So, and that's where the power of LIMA comes in. You don't have to have 20 different umbrellas for 20 different types of rains, right? So it's one solution that can cater to various forms of data, be it the structure in which it is stored, the quality of the data, the volume of the data, or the format of the data itself. And then based on the rules that you define, it can it can bring together all those disparate things and then provide that business sense for you. The use case of which was demonstrated illustratively a little bit by Niranjan himself. So yes, it can cater to various interoperable data formats as well on the source end.
Thank you. I'm sure that means even the latency differences between one set of input device to another set of input data is all taken care because you have somebody's audio is on. Somebody's audio. Hello, hello.
तो हम जब कल गए ना वहाँ तो मतलब इसके पहले जो
Miss Deepa Kumari, can you switch off your audio, please?
Some wedding planning going on, but yeah.
Miss Deepa Kumari, some wedding plan is
going on. I'm so sorry, sir. Actually, I'm not a mention. So sorry.
No, please mute your audio.
Okay,
okay, sure. You've got a very important activity at your home. We respect that. The main thing is the please. Latency problems are automatically taken care. Otherwise, Mangalyaan is not possible because in a microsecond, that particular spacecraft is landing in the wrong plot of the Mars, as it were.
Right.
So that's a great insight. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So the latency problem, I mean, the source input data or the sniffers of the data, right? So it could be configured to accept real-time systems using some of the latest protocols, or in a batch-based mode, or like in a pull mode as well from time to time, right? So it can do push, pull, IoT, keep listening in, and then once the data is comes in these various formats, based on the logic that you prescribe, it can make sense out of all these together as well. So we have some reusable components wherein you can do real-time analytics, like, hey, for the past 15 seconds, what has been my output in this manufacturing process for this key function based on the IoT data, right? At the same time, you can store all of that and then say, hey, how has my day been today with respect to my yield on that particular function. Or it could be transactional, like financials or aerospace, right? Like, different experiments. If it's a bio, then it's a different experiment. So you can write, or you can define real-time analytics as well as traditional analytics as well, and a batch data, or even combine these two, and then provide a comprehensive view for your business, right? So all of these facets are core parts of the architecture that businesses, the users, can leverage when defining the solution.
That's a great insight. I have a related question. Before that, let me ask the audience, do they have any other question? I don't see any hands up. My related question, sir, is in the automobile industry, typically, aerospace also, there are the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 and job shops, multiple layers of supply chain, and the OEM like Tata or Toyota are there. Yeah, I think you have done many global case studies with automobile industry. In this context, is there a blockchain technology used by LIMA where you collect the data from several nodes, need not necessarily be through a linear approach from tier 3, tier 2, tier 1 and OEM, but all the tiers can be speaking to the control tower? I think there is one slide you showed the control tower, and is there any use case on the control tower blockchain concept in your supply chain projects?
Right. I mean, we did sort of one use case with one of the leading providers on the blockchain type of blockchain-based technology as well. Part of the blockchain, adoption of blockchain globally has been the trust, right? The trust and the handshake. So people are not willing to publish, the data so outwardly, proactively, based on your requirement, right? Unless there's a financial incentive. If it's as simple as like the certificates of graduates, then yeah, it's fine. It's a public info, could be LinkedIn. But some of the core, like as I said, tier 3, tier 4, tier 2, tier 1, these would have some operational details and product enhancements or product features that are that make these suppliers unique, and differentiating from the group, if you will. So we have done few use cases, but it hasn't been like even companies such as IBM, etc., come forward with some consortiums and solutions to gather people in under the same umbrella and then publish. But the results have been only modest or nominal. And we face similar challenges as well in our use case. But the platform itself provides you with that capability that you want to build a solution, in a consortium format. Yeah.
That's a very good point. There are several variables which are confidential to the supply chain players, actors. But there are 3 factors which are not confidential to any of the players. They are the factors which are demanded by the OEM, namely the delivery readiness of the material or the component and the lead time of delivery, right? And the thirdly, the logistics where the Kanban is moving from one place to another in the pull system. So when the lean manufacturing system is happening, these data are supposed to be transparent, right? Between OEM and the suppliers, this data are not confidential. Right now, the data is moving linearly from tier 1 to tier 3 to tier 2, tier 2 to tier 1 to OEM. In the blockchain concept, they need not share cost data, they need not share innovation data, etc. But the non-confidential data, if you can look at it as an important project, I can tell you the Toyotas and the Tatas of the world will jump into it as a fantastic use case. And I think people would like to know what is going on in the job shop, the tier 3 company, tier 2 company and tier 1 company, because nobody has time to wait for their immediate tier to tell that if the tier 2 is failed or a tier 3 has failed. Anyway, so that is where probably the problem statement or the business case need to be defined in a more in a very practical manner. That I feel is a very big supply chain project. Boeing is doing this project. I am aware. I attended a webinar, and that's where I came to know this. And in aerospace industry, there is no choice. They have to access to all the tiers of the vendors. Automobile have to access, and now they are being very patient about it. Well, now it's 12:20. Are there any overall remark by the speakers or by the participants?
So on behalf of Airline, we'd like to thank BCIC.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, on behalf of Airline, Niranjan, Mohan, the speakers have really had a great time with the forum. I really want to thank Sri Mauli and the BCIC forum chairman and leadership team to have us come in. This is an exciting time that we are looking at SCM 4.0 and data sciences platform, artificial intelligence, machine learning come together in more than real prototype, but factors. But we are looking at the industry adapt to data sciences in a big way. Machine learning and artificial intelligence is budgeted in almost every organization in the West and Europe for sure, as well as India is also not lagging anywhere behind. We have a lengthy discussions, plans and seminars, and like these webinars, people are having arousing curiosity and investing time and effort and looking at even reorienting the skills of the organization. As a matter of fact, IT is having a paradigm shift. So this webinar is just a icebreaker, but certainly we are looking for seeing the growth and proliferation of this technology to enable business value, business users coming in to drive their decisions. I look forward to working with all of you, and we thank the BCIC. Niranjan and Mohan, you want to add anything from your end?
Thank you again for the BCC. I really appreciate the opportunity. Had a great time. Thanks, Mr. Chandramouli, for sharing the insights. Look forward to the next steps or address any questions or further insights that anyone may want. But again, thanks. Great forum. Thanks for the opportunity again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chandramouli. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Murali Krishna. Thank you, Mr. Niranjan. Thank you, Mr. Krishna Mohan, for keeping your sleeping hours for us. We are really grateful. A truly international webinar we heard now. It has got so much of information in every slide and a lot of technology driven approach as well as use case driven approach. And this link will be posted in LinkedIn and other social media of the BCIC. And also if you go into the other members, BCIC, Rupa will send it. And I'm sure there'll be a follow-up call on this. We will arrange sooner or later. And I hope that the Hyderabad team also can engage closely, being there in India, in the Indian time zones. So the people can come at the right time. And Saturdays, Sundays also, sometimes we have these programs. On that note, I thank Rupa, also the Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce, having 800 members, 400 manufacturing and 400 in service sector, to lead this particular program. Well planned, and we will definitely spread the message of LIMA and A-Line Consulting across the length and breadth of Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Thank you so much. Good night to the speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good morning.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
sir.
so much.